chat. Just let them know it's out. You can hear it. Let me know when the program back on. Good. Well, shalom, shalom, shalom. Praise the mighty Yah. Please forgive us, but we should be back with you. And hopefully everything is coming back through loud and clear. Let's go ahead and finish off where we left off. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 10th chapter, we're dealing with the third order. Actually, the third requirement, which is in order. Because everything with Yah is in order. He's in perfect Elohim, and that's the only way you can be perfect, is if you have things in order. And Yahweh has to show the order. He has to create the order. He has to make the crooked thing straight. He has to establish the truth because he's the creator. And when you create something, you have to be the one to determine the direction, the what to do's and the what not to do's. You the one to determine the left from the right, and he's the creator. And he's put everything in order, and all we're doing is learning the order of the Almighty. That way we can order ourselves, and we can order our steps. And this is the way we can have our houses in order, and we can live in order. So praise Yah, let's get back to it. Here in the 12th verse of Deuteronomy, the 10th chapter, it reads, Now Israel, what does Yahweh thy Elohim require of thee, but to fear Yahweh thy Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him? And you mean to tell me that Yahweh is not just all about an individual keeping his laws and statutes and judgments and looking the part, dressing the part, talking the part, even though all of those things is a part of loving the Almighty. But those things are not going to totally define your love for the Almighty. Your love for the Almighty, it comes from the heart. And this is why the Almighty said he looketh at the inward parts of a man. Because the outer parts of a man, as you all know, can be deceiving. A man can look well, healthy, but his inner parts, he's sick. And that sickness can be mental, spiritual, it can be physical. And so you can be deceived by the cover of a book, but you have to get into the inner parts of that book, the inner parts of that man that really see the truth. So it makes sense that Yahweh said he judges the heart. He looks at the grain of a man. And this is where you will find love. The word love, people, according to the scriptures, it just means affection. That's what it means, to have affection for. And when you study this word affection, which defines love, you study the word affection, and it means to desire. To desire. And another word in the scriptures that's used for the word desire, which means the same thing, is lust. Lust. And yes, all lust defines love. All you study lust. The word affect, no matter what you're lusting after, all your lust and desire comes from the heart. All of it. Well, let me show you this in the scriptures about love. Go with me just the next chapter over, Deuteronomy, the 11th chapter. And look what it reads. Therefore, thou shalt love Yah, thy Elohim, and keep his charge, and his statutes, and his judgments, and his commandments always. And know ye this day, for I speak not with your children which ye have not known, and which have not seen the chastisement of Yahweh your Elohim. And what Yahweh said about chastisement, he said, be not weary of his chastisement. Be not weary of his correction. For whom he corrects and chastises, that's the one that he loves. This is the one that he's going to put his stock into. This is the one that he has his high expectations for. But all over these scriptures, it's astounding how many times the Most High tells us to love him. Go back a few chapters real quick. I want you to see this. Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter. Let's start reading at the 6th verse. For thou art a holy people unto Yah, thy Elohim. Yahweh thy Elohim hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. And a lot of people don't believe this, that Yahweh has a special people, that he loved more than all the other people, a special people that he's done put above the other people. So this preaching and this teaching of equality, and that all people are equal and all people are the same. Well, what book did you get that from? Who told you that truth? Or who told you that period? Because when you get into the words of the Almighty, that statement is not true. All people are not equal. There's a balance in life. All creatures are not equal. All animals are not equal. You think that a dog and a horse has the same value? You think just because they're both a beast, an animal, that they're on the same level? There's always levels to this. But the 7th verse says, Yahweh did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of all people. But because Yahweh loved you, because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers. Of course, Yahweh wants us to love him. And it's the 3rd requirement. And if you've been learning about the 3rd, this is how Yahweh will establish his servants. And yes, the 3rd is all about serving. Because on the 3rd day, Yahweh created the earth. And what do you think the Almighty put the earth here for? For it to be tilled, for it to be dressed, for it to be kept, for it to be served. But all this serving serves no purpose if we're not serving a true and living Creator. But Yahweh wants us to love him because he loves us. He done set his love upon us. He chose us. And even if you're not one of Yahweh's chosen seed, your best bet is to love the Almighty. Excuse me, people. But yes, to love the Almighty, it establishes you as one of Yahweh's servants. The true love of the Almighty. Let's keep reading this in the 8th verse. But because Yahweh loved you because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, have Yahweh brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know therefore Yahweh the Elohim, he is Elohim, faithful Elohim, which keep his covenant and mercy with them that love him. If you want mercy, you want the blessing of Yah, the Most High will never forsake you. The Most High is going to keep you even in your time of trouble. He's going to keep you in your time of adversities. And he's going to be merciful to you. Even when you fall, he's not going to let you fall too hard. Why? Because you love him. And so let's keep seeing what the Most High says. Which keep his covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. But he repayeth them that hate him to their face, to destroy them. He would not be slack to him that hateth him. How on earth can you hate the Almighty, the one that created the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that in them is? I can't understand it. But the majority of the population hate the Almighty. Look at also, so you can see this point driven home to you, before we get into some testimonies to show you all what it looks like to really love the Almighty. And how, when you love Yah, this is how you establish yourself as a servant of the Almighty. So you don't have to be a Moreh. You don't have to be a priest. You don't have to be a prophet. You don't have to be none of these specific titles. Your ultimate goal in life should be, I want to just be a servant of the Almighty. Which means what? You can make me a doorkeeper. You can make me the clean the bathrooms in the temple. Long as whatever I'm doing, I just want to serve the Almighty. If I'm just an errand boy for the Almighty, if I'm just a doorkeeper, I just want to be a servant of the Almighty. Well, if you want to be a servant of the Almighty, you have to love the Almighty. You have to have an affection for the Almighty. You have to have a burning desire. Because when you get to studying the word affection, it's a burning. It's a desire in a sense of burning. This is why you will find the words zealous. Zealous for the Almighty. Jealous for the Almighty. Because you burn for the Almighty. You burn for him in your heart. You yearn for him. But look what it says in Exodus 20. Exodus 20, starting at verse 5. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them. And let's start at verse 4. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh the Elohim, I'm a jealous Elohim. He's jealous because he's the creator. He's the only one. He's the one that's done all things. He created good and evil. If you got good in your life, you better praise Yah. He's the only one. And if you love the Almighty, you will find yourself jealous for his sake. How can people on this earth give praises and credit and glorify anybody other than the true and living creator, whose name is Yahweh? He visits the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy, which just means kindness, unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. And this is beautiful. It's beautiful to see that there is people in this earth that love the Almighty. And I praise the mighty Yah. I love the Almighty. This is why I done made the sacrifice this evening, and I'm going to continue to make the sacrifice, because the truth is, people, love is sacrifice. When you begin to study this word, to have an affection and a burning for it, this burning desire will cause you to make sacrifices. And when you have a desire, when you have a lust, you will make sacrifices for it. What is your lust? What's your desire? It might be a woman, or it might be a man. He say, man, I desire this person. Next thing you know, you making all kind of sacrifices. You going into the bank accounts and you pulling out this and that because you want to go and buy something nice, or you want to help them with a bill, or you want to put some gas in their tank. You want to take them out to lunch. You sacrificing your time. You sacrificing your money. You have people, they lust, they desire something so bad, they'll work 2 and 3 jobs. And they'll sacrifice their sleep. They'll sacrifice their body. They'll sacrifice the very bone in their body. All the way, you got people out here where they say, man, every drop of sweat and blood for this, because that's the sacrifice they will make. And what did the Almighty say? Look what it say in the scriptures in Psalms. The book of Psalms 51. If you love the Almighty, if you want to love the Almighty, you have to start making sacrifices. Because then Yahweh will be able to see that, man, look, this man must really love me. Excuse me, I said Psalms 51, but it's actually in Psalms 50. Verse 5. Gather my saints together unto me, those that has made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And this is the ones that Yahweh is looking for. This is the ones Yahweh wanted gathered unto him. Those that done made a covenant with the Almighty, and they did it in their heart by the way of sacrifice. And when you study this sacrifice, this is about a free will offering. Something that you voluntarily offer. And voluntary means that you want to do it. You haven't been forced to do it. You haven't been asked to do it. Your heart and spirit has been stirred up and motivated to do it. Do what? Serve the Almighty. Make sacrifices for the Almighty. Choose the things that please him. Matter of fact, look what it says. Go to the book of Isaiah, the 56th chapter. See, if you love the Almighty, which is his third requirement, and it's his third requirement because if you want to be established as a servant of the Almighty, you can. You just have to love him. And look what it says. Isaiah 56, starting at verse 1. Thus says Yah, keep ye judgment and do justice, for my salvation is near to come. My righteousness is to be revealed. Blessed is the man that does this, and the son of man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hands from doing any evil. Neither let the son of the stranger that has joined himself unto Yah speak, saying, Yah has utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuchs say, behold, I'm a dry tree. For thus says Yah unto the eunuchs, that keeps my Sabbaths, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant, even until then will I give in my house and within my walls a place and a name better than sons and of daughters. So yes, Yahweh will make a servant out of even a stranger. Just because you're not Israel, don't mean you can't be one of Yahweh's servants. That should be your goal. You might can't be a priest. You might can't be a prophet. You might can't have certain positions. But there is no better position to have than just be a servant of the Almighty. A servant. And a servant of the Almighty is one who loves the Almighty and will choose the things that pleases the Almighty. And let me show you what pleases the Almighty. Go to the book of Micah. No, excuse me, the book of Hosea, the 6th chapter. Hosea, the 6th chapter. And look what it says. Hosea, the 6th chapter says, in the 6th verse, for I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Yahweh let you know his desire. And this what the word, when you study the word love, it boils down to this word desire, affection, a burning. Yahweh said he desired mercy. That's the thing that pleases him. So this is why today we want to invest ourselves in mercy. If you love the Almighty. See, if you love the Almighty, then you want to learn what do Yahweh love so I can fulfill his desire. So I can start choosing the things that please him. Because I love him. And since I love him, I'm about to make some sacrifices to show my love. I'm not about to just come around saying praise the mighty Yah all the time and then come before the Almighty empty-handed. The Most High told us in Deuteronomy, the 14th chapter, that 3 times a year we were supposed to appear before him. But don't appear before him empty. He says, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of Elohim more than burnt offerings. More than burnt offerings. This is what Yahweh desires. And that's how I know it's a beauty to get myself invested because I love the Almighty in this particular sacrifice. The sacrifice of the knowledge of Elohim. And this is why when you move and when you're working and you're doing things, you want to have understanding. You want to have purpose behind what you're doing. And my purpose tonight, to stand before the people, to bring you the requirement of Yah. This is all about my love for the Almighty. This is all about my sacrifice for the Almighty. This is about the spirit and magnifying the word and name of Yahweh. And if you're tuning in, that's what you should have on your mind. I'm doing this because I want to listen in. And it's something, I might say a lot of things, and a lot of things might not penetrate you. But if you listen with the right kind of ears, it's something that you're going to get out of this. It's something that's going to register. When you sit down and you listen with the right state of mind. And this is all about the love of the Almighty. This is about choosing the thing that pleases him, which is the knowledge of Elohim. We have to get it. We have to possess it. And this is Yah's requirement. This is the knowledge of Elohim. Let's get more into this, people. I want to show you how it really looks to love the Almighty. And if you love the Almighty, go with me to Psalms 119. I want to show you this first, because this is the chief thing. This is the chiefest thing. That if you love the Almighty, look what it says in Psalms 119. Let's read verse 97. Oh, how I love thy law. It is the meditation all the day. See, how can you love the Almighty? See, Yahweh said, I don't want you making no graven images of me. I don't want you wrapped up in images. Don't make no graven images. The likeness of anything in heaven above, earth beneath, the waters under the earth. This is not what I want you wrapped yourself into, is images. Yahweh said, listen, I want you to get yourself wrapped up into my words. Matter of fact, we're going to come right back to Psalms 119. This is what you're going to do. Go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter. And look what it says. This is what Yahweh wants you to wrap yourself up into. And we say this every Sabbath day. We quote this. Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim is one, and thou shalt love Yahweh thy Elohim with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. Yahweh don't want no fake love. He don't want no cheap love. He don't want no watered down love. He want real, 100% authentic love that's strong. That a love that's so strong, it'll make a man just lose sleep. Make him lose sleep. And you got men out here that got love that strong. That love just ain't geared towards Yah. It's geared towards they self and their self goals and the things that they trying to accomplish and the things that they want to invest they self in. And they got a strong desire, and they will lose sleep, and they will sweat, they will bleed, they will make a strong sacrifice for their desires. And Yahweh want that. He says, thou shalt love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in your heart. Because the heart is where all desire and where all lust lies. Anything you desire is because it's in your heart. Anything you lust is because it's in your heart. That's what your heart wants. Desire don't come from your mind. Desire don't come from your spirit. It comes from your heart. And the truth is, the heart is what make a man. The heart is what, at the end of the day, if you want a strong mind, you're going to have to get a strong heart. You want a strong spirit, you're going to have to get a strong heart. If you want a strong physical body, you're going to have a strong heart. The heart is the fountain of life. The issues of life comes out of the heart, as it tells us in the book of Proverbs. And this is why Yahweh said he judged the heart. The center of a man. The foundation of that man. And he says, put it in your heart. Because I want you, if you love me, well, you're going to have to put these words in your heart. You're going to have to be all about these words. to the point that in the 7th verse, thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children. Diligently, when you study diligently, it means continuous. Every day, every night, without fail. You ask yourself, do you go days without drinking and eating? No, you don't. Do you go nights without drinking and eating? No, you don't. So there should be no days and no nights that we don't drink and eat on this word. Because this is our life. This is what the true substance that's going to cause us to live. He says, thou shalt teach them diligently to your children, and thou shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. That's what you call cleaving. That's what you call immersed. This is what you call living inside the word of the Almighty. And look what he says further. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand. Put my words on your hand, he's saying. And they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. So Yahweh wants us not wrapped up into images. He wants us wrapped up in his word. And he wants you to love his words. He wants you to set your hearts unto this word. Set your desire and your lust and your burning desire unto this word. Now we can go back to Psalms 119. Because if you love the Almighty, well then, this reciprocates to the fact that you love his word. This is your relationship with the Almighty. This having his words. You want to hold Yahweh's hand? Well, just have his words on your hand like he said. You want to give Yahweh a hug? Well, hug his words. And put that law on your chest. Have it as frontlets between your eyes. Have your fringes on, because the Most High told us in Numbers, the 15th chapter, 38th verse, that these fringes that we wear shall represent the laws and commandments, statutes and judgments, my words that I've given you, and that you may look upon them and remember and not forget. Look what it says, Psalms 119, and we was reading verse 97. We're going to read that verse again. He says, oh, how I love thy law. Excuse me. And thank you for those that said bless you. It is my meditation all the day. Why? Because he loved Yah. Through thy commandments has made me wiser than my enemies, for they are ever before me. They ever before me. They always before me. Look what it says in the 113th verse. He says, I hate vain thoughts, but thy law, that's what I love. Thou art my hiding place and my shield. I hope in thy word. And Yahweh said, listen, he that keep his mind on me, I will keep him at perfect peace. Keep your minds on the word of the Almighty. This is your hiding place. This is your secret place. And if you tuning in right now, you in Yahweh's secret hiding place. Because you done separated yourself to the words of the Almighty. The Most High said, arise and shine, for your light has come. What light do you think that is? Did you not learn the order and what light represents? It represents the word of the Almighty. The Most High said, put on your garments of strength. What do you think that is? That's the words of the Almighty. That's all we have to do, people. We know that danger is coming. We know that a dark day is coming. But all we have to do is trust in Yah and hope in his words. That his truth is our salvation. His truth is our safe habitation. His truth is our greatest investment, and it's going to protect us. But you have to show the Almighty that this is your investment. This is what you're using to hope in. This is what you hoping is going to be your safe place. Because there is no place that you can hide when it comes to the judgment of the Almighty. Look what it says further in the 119th verse. Thou puttest away all the wicked of the earth like dross. Therefore I love thy testimonies. To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to these, is because there is no light in them. And yes, when you begin to truly love the Almighty, you love the laws and you love the testimonies. And we about to get into some testimonies. But I want to read a couple more of these. 127 verse. Look how these brothers talk. Therefore, he says, the 26th verse, it is time for thee, Yah, to work, for they have made void your law. They make it seem like the law and the word of the Almighty is some secondary thing. It's just some thing that help us keep ourselves, just a little righteous. But the thing that we really need to invest in is getting these businesses and building this and building that. So in other words, we're going to put the word of the Almighty, it's on the back burner. It's not the most important thing. And this is why the people, you ask them right now, just ask them, what's the 7 everlasting covenants of the Almighty? They're not going to be able to tell you. And if they can tell you, well, show me. Show me what you're saying. And then you will see, man, their investment in the word of Yah is not strong. They love for the word of Yah. It's not strong. Because if they love it, they will remember the covenants. Just like they remember these songs that they love, that they rapping up and down the street, and as they driving in their cars, and they can remember all these songs. And they can remember to be on time to their job. They remember everything. But do you remember the requirements of the Almighty? Do you remember his covenants? Do you remember his commandments? Can you recite it by heart? Then Yahweh not tell you to put this thing in your heart? Well, I can understand it's not in your heart because you don't love it. You ain't lusting for it. You ain't desiring it. You don't have a burning desire for it. In other words, you don't have a burning desire for Yah. You really not into the business of choosing the things that please Yah. Yahweh said, I desire the knowledge of Elohim. People. He said, they done made void thy law. It's time for you to work, Yah. It is time. He said, therefore, since they made void your law, therefore I love your commandments above gold. Yeah, above fine gold. And yes, that's why you want to invest in this. Because this is better than gold. Yahweh said in the book of Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter. Do we need to read it? Yes, let's read it. We need to, because people listening in, and then they say, hey, I'm tired of hearing this, and I'm tired of hearing that, and here you go again, and here you go again, and they still don't know it. They still can't recite it. They still can't and show you. The Most High said, listen, Deuteronomy 4:4, but ye that did cleave unto Yah, the ones that love Yah, they the ones that cleave unto Yah. And when you cleave unto Yah, you cleave unto every word that he says. But ye that did cleave unto Yahweh your Elohim are alive, every one of you this day. And behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as Yahweh my Elohim command me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom. This your wisdom? And did not the scriptures tell us that there is nothing to be compared unto wisdom? Wisdom is not to even be compared with the finest rubies, the finest gold. There is no riches on earth that will outvalue the price of wisdom. What I'm going to do with some gold and some rubies and some diamonds and riches, and I don't got no wisdom? I don't have no wisdom. He said, not only your wisdom, but this shall be your understanding in the sight of the nations. And understanding is not the same understanding that you learn in school. This understanding of comprehension of a book. This understanding is a different understanding. This understanding is a spirit. A spirit that rests upon a man when he got the spirit of Yah. When he had the spirit of the truth. And you can't learn that spirit from a book. You have to get that spirit from Yah. And it's only one book where you can even get that spirit. And that's from Yah's book. But even then, Yahweh had to unlock it. And he has to give it to you. And you put yourself on a road of making sacrifices for the Almighty. You put yourself on a road where you're fearing Yah. And you're walking in his ways. And you begin to love the Almighty. Well, then the Most High will start unlocking the doors of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And next thing you know, you become a different person. Because your spirit changes. Because this is a spirit. But I wanted to show you, what did he say? This is your wisdom and your knowledge. This is your wisdom and your understanding. In the sight of all the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this is a great nation. This great nation is a wise and understanding people. Can you imagine all these arrogant nations that think they so smart and they so arrogant? But Yahweh said, man, once you possess what I got for you, all the nations is going to be saying, my God, this is a great nation. This is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great who has Elohim so nigh unto them as Yahweh our Elohim is in all things that we call upon him for? And if you want Yahweh nigh unto you, all you have to be is nigh unto him, and you be nigh unto Yah through his words. The Most High told us in the book of Joshua, the 1st chapter, the 6th verse. No, start at verse 7. It says, only be thou strong and very courageous. Be strong, very courageous. And this word courageous means to fasten up. Fasten the boots up. Tighten yourself up. And go ahead and be strong. That thou mayest observe to do according to all the law, which Moses my servant commanded thee. Don't turn to the left or to the right, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth. It shouldn't depart out your mouth because you're supposed to be rehearsing it every day. You're supposed to be reciting it every night. You're supposed to be teaching it every day. You're supposed to be teaching it every night. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make your way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. No wonder we ain't prosperous, and we don't have no good success. Also in the book of Psalms, the 1st chapter, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Just wasting your time. But his delight is in the law of Yah. See, we ain't got time to be running around dealing with some negative stuff, talking about negativity, and talking about how bad this person is and how bad that person is, and just sitting in the seat of somebody just want to scorn and talk bad about somebody. And we ain't standing in the way of sinners, and we ain't got time to even talk about no sinners. Our delight has to be in the law of Yah, and in his law does he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his seasons. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he does, he's going to prosper. And this is why. This is our main investment. Yahweh said, except Yah build the house, They that labor build it in vain. That's a nice house you built there, sir. But my goodness, you just wasted all your time. You just built that big old pretty thing in vain. Because Yahweh didn't have nothing to do with it. You didn't have the spirit of the Almighty. And what you built that house for? But once you get yourself immersed in the words of the Almighty, and the spirit of truth, and the spirit of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is upon you, and then you allow Yahweh to lead and direct your steps, now he's going to bless you. He's going to establish you. And now when you begin to build, it's going to be through the spirit of Yah. And it's going to be blessed. And you don't have to worry about it getting torn down. You don't have to be afraid at night that, man, am I going to have a good, successful day tomorrow? No, you can have confidence that, man, Yah is with me. Because I know where my investment is. And I know where my stock is. And that's in Yah. And that's in his word. Praise Yah. So I just wanted to show you that if you love the Almighty, you want to love the Almighty, well, you better start having a desire for his words, a desire to study it, read it, learn it, and know it, and set it in your heart. Set it in your heart and teach it diligently unto your children. Look at this. Go with me to Genesis, the 22nd chapter. And before you go there, I want to show you this. We're going to go to Genesis 22. Hold your page there. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 13th chapter. Starting at verse 1. Look what it says. If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and giveth thee a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder come to pass, whereof he spake unto thee, saying, let us go after other gods, which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. Thou shalt not hearken unto the words of that prophet, or that dreamer of dreams. For Yah, your Elohim, is just proving you, testing you, to know whether you will love Yah, your Elohim, with all your heart and with all your soul. See, Yah is going to test your love. And this is the ultimate test. The ultimate test, people, is to see if you love your Elohim, if you love your Creator. And that's why Yah will give you all these lovely things that's just so desirable. And then get your love and your lust caught all up. And it's all a big test to see, are you going to love that, or are you going to love me? And this is a great test. And that's the test before us every day. And most people are failing because they will love their vanities over the Almighty. They will love their pleasures over the Almighty. They will love their wife and their husband more than the Almighty. They will love their sons and daughters more than the Almighty. They will love their father and mother, brothers, sisters, cousins. They will love their own family over the Almighty. Look, now we can go to Genesis 22 so you can see what I'm trying to show you. And before you read Genesis 22, let's read Genesis 15 and 1. After these things, Genesis 15 and 1, and then we're going to go over to Genesis 22. But Genesis 15 and 1. After these things, the word of Yahweh came unto Abram in a vision. Every time I just see that, the word of Yah, it just makes, it makes me feel so happy in my heart that the word of the Almighty is amongst us. It's here. And Yahweh has given us his words. But it says the word of Yahweh came unto Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram, I'm your shield, and I'm your exceeding great reward. People, there is no greater reward. There is nothing greater to desire other than Yahweh himself. He is the exceeding great reward. There is nothing too hard for the Almighty. And he lives forever. He's righteous. He's holy. He executes his loving kindness and tender mercies. Just to be with him forever is the greatest thing you want to accomplish. I know you thought having a husband and having a wife and having some children was the greatest accomplishment. And getting you the nicest car and the nicest house and the greatest credit score and establishing your life a certain way. No. There is no greater investment. There is no greater love. There is no greater reward than Yahweh himself. And the ones that truly love the Almighty, they know. Man, Yah is I don't even have a breath to breathe without Yah. I don't have no children, no husbands, no wife. I don't have nothing without Yah. I am nothing without Yah. Yahweh has to be your chiefest joy. But I want you to see what he told our father. He said, I'm your shield. That's why the scriptures say, man, except Yahweh build the city, they that labor buildeth it in vain. And except Yah watches the city, the watchman waking, but in vain. Because at the end of the day, your true shield, your true protection comes from the Almighty. And he can see everything. He knows everything. As long as you got him on your side, you don't have nothing to worry about. You got a protection upon you that people can't even see. And his word, people. This right here. This is our covering. This is our safe habitation. This is the cloth. This is the fabric. This is the armor you want to put on yourself. This is the armor you want to put on your house, on your children, your family. Now let's go to Genesis 22. For Yahweh is our greatest. He's our shield. He's our exceeding great reward. And listen, and I'm sorry because at Genesis 15 I failed to read something, because after Yahweh told him, I'm your shield and exceeding great reward, in the second verse, Abram said, Yahweh Elohim, what would thou give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is this Eleazar of Damascus. And Abram said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed. And lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of Yah came unto him, saying, this shall not be your heir, but he that shall come forth out of thy own bowels shall be thine heir. You're going to have your own son. And he brought him forth abroad and said, look now toward heaven. Tell the stars if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, that's how your seed going to be. This is why, man, you can't put nothing above the Almighty. There's nothing too hard for the Almighty. We sit around here stressing because we don't have no husband, but Yahweh right in your face trying to get your attention. We were out here stressing because you ain't got no wife, but Yahweh in your face trying to get your attention. You stressing because you ain't got this and you ain't got that. The main thing we should be stressed about, if you stress, is that Yahweh ain't with you. But if Yahweh is with you, and you found wisdom, the scriptures say, happy is he that found wisdom. Although the more wisdom increase, the more sorrow increase, because you start to realize the multitude of the inhabitants of the world is gone dark. The people are foolish. The people are deaf, dumb, blind. And it's a continual stress. It's sorrowful. It's stressful. But don't get it twisted. It ain't so stressful that I can't be happy in my Yah. it gives you great joy to understand why things is the way it is, even though it comes with some sorrow. But I wanted to show you that. And he said, no, you're going to have your son. Even I know I done made you wait until you was 90 years old, and all this time everybody having kids, and you 90 years old now, and your wife is up in age with you, and y'all still don't have your own children. I know it's been rough. But this wasn't by coincidence. This wasn't by accident. This was purpose. Yahweh made him wait. And the more he wait, the more his desire just burned and burned and burned and burned. Until the burning just got to the point when Yahweh said, listen, I'm your shield and exceeding great reward. He said, my Yah, what are you going to give me, seeing that I go childless? I just want me a son. Somebody that live on my name. And look what happened. Yahweh gave him a son, like he said. But look what Yahweh did. And it came to pass, Genesis 22, verse 1, it came to pass after these things that Elohim did tempt Abraham. It's temptation time. And said unto him, Abraham, he said, behold, here I am. And he said, take now your son, your only son Isaac, the one that I told you I will establish my covenant with him, and he shall be a prince among the earth. I want you to take this son, your only son, whom thou lovest. You love that boy. You've been waiting 90 some years for this boy, and you love him. And get thee into the land of Moriah and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, saddled his ass. He didn't tarry. He got up early in the morning. He didn't say, well, let me go ahead and spend the day with my son first, because I love my son. And he wasn't weeping and crying. There's no testimony of it. This man rose early in the morning, saddled his ass, took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and went unto the place which Elohim had told him. Then on the third day, people, this wasn't random. This was Yahweh establishing his servant. On the third day, this great, magnificent event in Abraham's life, when he's tempted to sacrifice his son. You think Yahweh allowed this to just be on a random day? This day was planned. And it's the third day, because the third is significant when you're dealing with Yahweh's servants. And on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hands and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto his father and said, my father. He said, here I am, my son. And he said, behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? You see how this young son, he pays attention to his father. He's learning. He's like, man, I've been around this thing, and I know how things work, and we're doing the sacrifice. We got the wood, the fire, but I don't see, the lamb like we usually have. In other words, he's giving you his observation. And if he observed his father crying, he'd say, Dad, what mean you by this crying? What you crying for, Dad? No, he wasn't weeping. This man knew that he was just fulfilling the word of the Almighty, and he was delighted to do it. How do I know he was delighted to do it? He loved to do it. How do I know he loved to do it? Because this man was established as a servant of the Almighty. He was established. And you cannot be established as a servant of the Almighty without loving the Almighty, without loving the word of the Almighty. And look what happened. And Abraham said, my son Elohim will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. Can't you just see the confidence that Yahweh, that this man got in Yah? And they came to the place which Elohim had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order and bound his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hands, took the knife to slay his son, and the angel of Yah called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. He said, here I am. And he said, lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest Elohim, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And at the end of the day, all he showed was that he loved the Almighty more than his son. He loved the Almighty. And that's the kind of love that Yahweh wants his servants to have. We can't withhold nothing from the Almighty. There's a man in the scriptures, and you can read about him later. He was one of the priests of the Almighty. And his name was, what was the priest's name? He had the sons? He had his sons, and they was defiling the sanctuary. Yeah, Eli in the book of Samuel. And he knew his sons was defiling Yahweh's house. And he was defiling, they were defiling the women, and they was doing wickedness in the house of the Almighty. But at the end thereof, Yahweh told him, he said, man, why hast thou honored your sons above me? And people, when you study this love, to love the Almighty is to honor the Almighty, to fear the Almighty, to walk in his ways. This is a part of the recipe. That's why the scriptures say, honor your father and your mother. Because if you love them, you're going to honor them. And this man loved his sons. He honored his sons above the Almighty. And you can't do that. At the end of the day, you don't want to love nothing over the Almighty. I'm going to also show you this. Go to 1 Chronicles, the 29th chapter. See, we try to protect our sons and our daughters. Sometimes we overprotective. And we become overprotective because we ain't trusting in the Almighty. You can't protect your sons and daughters from everything. Only one can do that is Yah. And this is why brothers like Job would make sacrifices, and he would appeal unto Yahweh's mercy every day for his household, for the unseen and the unknown dangers that's in the world. You try to keep your kids in the house all day long because you think that's what's going to protect them. A spider can crawl right up in their bed at night and bite them on the neck, and then you wake up in the morning and they sitting there ain't even breathing from a spider bite. Can you protect them from that? A snake can creep up in your house. Snake can get in some people's houses. So if you want to protect your family, you have to appeal unto Yahweh's mercy, and you have to invest yourself in the word of the Almighty, and you have to invest that into your children so that they can learn how to put their trust in the Almighty. And when they get in that car and these cars are doing 90 miles an hour and they driving, they put their trust in Yah. And everywhere they go, they carry it with them. 1 Chronicles, the 29th chapter. Look what it says in the first verse. Furthermore, David, the king, said unto all the congregation, Solomon, my son, whom alone Elohim has chosen, is yet young and tender, and the work is great, for the palace is not for man, but for Yahweh Elohim. Now I have prepared with all my might. Listen to David. I done prepared with all my might for the house of my Elohim, the gold for things to be made of gold, silver for things of silver, and brass for the things of brass, iron for the things of iron, and wood for the things of wood. Onyx stones, like this, onyx stone. Stones to be set, glycerin stones, diverse colors, and all manner of precious stones, marble stones in abundance. He prepared this with all his might, which means he made sure it was the best, and he made sure he got it in abundance. Because he said, this is not just any old house.
90 seconds.
This is the house of Yahweh our Elohim. And look what it says further. And what verse? The third verse. And we dealing with the third requirement. And look what it says. Moreover, because I set my affection to the house of my Elohim. I set my affection. And when you look up the word love, it means affection.
60 seconds.
And although you find love and this word love all over the scriptures, you will only find this word affection used in the scriptures. The actual word affection. One time. This is the only time. Right here in the third verse of 1 Chronicles 29. And David the one that used it. And I can understand. Because this man was exemplary when it comes to loving the Almighty. Why you think his name is David? When you look up the word David, it means loving. That's all it means. He was a loving man. And he was the most loving man in the scriptures. And you know he was the most loving man because Yahweh said this is a man that's after my own heart. And there is no love and no heart that has more love than Yah's heart. And the only heart that we know that's like unto Yah, the first one we know is David. King David. He was a loving man, and he loved people with the affection of the Almighty. He said, where is one of the sons of Jonathan? Where is one of his sons? The grandson of Saul. I need to find him so I can show him the kindness of Elohim. I want to show him the kindness of Yah. Not my kindness. I want to show him the kind of kindness that Yahweh showed. And he found him. You can read that story. He found Jonathan's son and took Jonathan and restored all the land of Saul to this boy. Gave him servants and told him, you shall eat at my table continually with me, with the king. But look at the love that he got for the Almighty. Moreover, because I have set my affection to the house of my Elohim, I have of my own proper good. I didn't go into my tithes. I didn't go to the priest to get them tithes from other people. I went into my own proper goods. Of gold and silver, which I have given to the house of my Elohim, over and above all that I have prepared for the holy house. They don't even need this much stuff. But I made sure they got it over and above out of my own proper goods. Why? Because I set my affection to the house of my Elohim. I set my love to the house of Elohim. And although we don't have an official house here in captivity, we got a sanctuary in captivity. So this is the closest thing that we have to the house of Elohim. And some might tell you, well, that's not a sanctuary. That's not the closest thing. But no. If you love the Almighty, then you will know that this is one of his sanctuaries. This is his sanctuary. But I love the scripture that he set his affection to the house of the Almighty because he know that's his relationship with the Almighty by giving and serving the Almighty serving the Almighty through the house of the Almighty. That's where all the servicing going down, and it's going through the house or the sanctuary of the Almighty. Look what it says in Psalms 132 concerning the same thing with David in the house of the Almighty. You see how this man loved the Almighty? When he go in his own proper goods and give all this riches for the purpose of building Yahweh's house. Look what it says in Psalms 132. Yahweh, remember David and all his afflictions, and how he swore unto Yah and vowed unto the mighty Elohim of Yaakov, surely I will not come into the tabernacle of my house, nor go up into my bed. I will not give sleep to my eyes, or slumber to my eyelids, until I find out a place for Yahweh and a habitation for the mighty Elohim of Yaakov. Do you see the burning desire? Do you see the love and affection and the servitude, the serving state of mind of this servant David that made this kind of vow, and to afflict himself with this kind of vow that he wouldn't even go into his own bed? Said, I'm about to sleep on the floor. And I ain't sleeping in this big old beautiful house. Look what he says. Go to 2 Samuel, the 6th chapter. Yahweh said, gather my saints together, those that done made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And this is the kind of sacrifice that Yah is looking for. And you will actually find what I'm looking for. Second Samuel, the 7th chapter, starting at verse 1. It came to pass, when the king sat in his house, Yahweh had given him rest round about from all his enemies. He done whooped them all. Now he got rest, and he's in his house. And look what happened in the second verse. The king said unto Nathan the prophet, see now, look at this. I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of Elohim dwelleth within curtains. The ark of Elohim. And Nathan said to the king, go, do all that is in your heart, for Yahweh is with you. And when Yahweh is with you, man, you're going to prosper in anything you do. So go ahead and do it. And it came to pass that night that the word of Yahweh came unto Nathan, and Yahweh had to haste, because he knew David was purpose in his mind, saying, go and tell my servant David, thus says Yahweh, shalt thou build me a house for me to dwell in? Really? Whereas I have not dwelt in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt, even to this day, but have walked in a tent and in a tabernacle. In all the places wherein I have walked with all the children of Israel, spake our word with them, any of the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to feed my people Israel, saying, why build ye me a house? And Yahweh ain't never complained about it. Not once. Why you ain't build me a house of cedar? But now therefore say thou, so shalt thou say unto my servant David, thus says Yah of hosts, I took thee from the sheepcote, from following the sheep, to be a ruler over my people, over Israel. And I was with thee whithersoever thou wentest, and have cut off all thy enemies. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own. And listen, for time's sake, I just wanted you to see that this man, as he sat in his own house, he couldn't be comfortable. He said, man, the ark of Elohim is just sitting over there in the tent. And I'm over here laid up in cedars. And the ark of Elohim, to him, that was That was the representation of Yahweh in our midst, having that ark and that blessing in our midst. He said, man, we got this thing sitting up in a tent. And I want to show you this last scripture so we can get off of here. I want you to see. We was in, is it 2 Samuel? Yes. The 6th chapter. I want you to see the first verse. Again, David gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people that were with him from Baal of Yehudah to bring up from thence the ark of Elohim. He said, listen, we got to go get the ark of Elohim. This is the ark of Elohim. This is the ark of Yah, whose name is called by the name of Yahweh of hosts, that dwelleth between the cherubims. And look, let's skip down. They brought it. And look what it says in the 5th verse. And David and all the house of Israel played before Yah on all manners of instruments, as they had a parade as they was bringing this ark of Elohim back to its rightful place. This is how much David loved the Almighty and rejoiced and delighted himself in the Almighty. They played before Yah all manners of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps, psalteries, and timbrels, and cornets, and cymbals. And skip down to the 14th verse. Because it was told David he had to stop and leave it, but Obed-Edom, the ark was resting in his city for a little while. And he got word that, man, the ark was blessing him. It was blessing the whole city. He said, man, we got to go and get it. And when they began to bring it, the 14th verse, David danced before Yahweh with all his might. Can you imagine somebody dancing with all their might? And David was girded with a linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of Yah with shouting and sounds of the trumpet. And trust and believe this, they was all feeding off the spirit of David. It was David that he was contagious with this love for the Almighty, an affection. And as the ark of Yahweh came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through a window and saw King David leaping and dancing before Yah, and she despised him in her heart. And why? Because some people in the world, no matter how much good is going on, their mind is so tracked to negativity, and they can't get away from it. Stop being so negative, people. Don't be so negative. Be more positive and look for the good. And I can understand when you got a negative approach when something just don't have no good. But even y'all said, listen, that cluster, don't throw it away, because there's some good still in it. And if it's good in it, man, good is valuable. You can work with it. So I praise the mighty Yah. I praise Yahweh for this opportunity to come here this night on Nothing But the Truth to deal with the third requirement of Yah. And his requirement is that you love him. And that's the big test, the ultimate test. Because at the end of the day, Yahweh don't want you serving him and you don't love him. He wants you to serve him through your love for him. That way, now you're serving him in delight. You're serving him in happiness and joyfulness. So praise the mighty Yah, because it was truly a joy to stand before you tonight to deal with the third requirement, to love Yah and to show his words. And with that being said, Yahweh is holy. Yahweh is righteous. Yahweh is holy. And let Yahweh's word and his name continually be magnified. Shalom, shalom. Hallelujah.
You just got to be able to deal with it. You show me a man without adversity, and I show you a man that never developed character. Because adversity establishes character. How you gonna have character if you never had adversity in your life? You never deal with the trials and tribulations. You never been sick in your stomach because of things that's happening. You never had to cry. You never had to say, how's my next dollar? How's my next bill? How am I gonna make it? You hear, don't you? That's a blessing.
I remember music was soothing to the soul of the user. Now the vocalist promote vocalness to the youth. How the coaches influence, no misconstrue in my direction. I know where I'm moving. The reason I switched up the message, y'all told me to do it. Said don't envy the wicked, nor desire is riches. That comes and goes, but wisdom is greater. I hope they listen. Don't get lost in the game. On that course you remain. The results is the same. It might cost you your name. Image scarred in my brain of the corpses inflamed. We the cause of our pain. Turned y'all's fame into shame. Gave his praise to a God they can't save. Live in vain in our ways. To this day we ain't changed. That's why I dedicate my life to this. Whenever I write or spin on mics, use music to enlighten, elevate our righteousness. I'm quite convinced when they will heighten or inspire the next generation. Shed some light on this.
Crazy, y'all keep starting. You know my heart, I can't lie. I do it all for you. I do it all for you. Crazy, y'all keep starting. You know my heart, I can't lie. I do it all for you. I do it all for you.
That's why I give them all praises. My people don't know who made us. Caught up in Egyptology, atheist theories plague us. Rastas, Islam, and Christianity indoctrinate us. We even pray to ourselves and ask ancestors to save us. Please y'all forgive them. We think that we don't have to answer to a higher power. Cause if you do, maybe that'll make you look like a coward. See, my people don't believe in anything, at least they can see it. But that don't mean it ain't there. What about the air you breathing? See you here for a reason, don't be scared, get prepared, unaware of the path that you lead. It might seem so unseen, like a song that's repeat in this theme, and you trying to figure out what's the meaning. It ain't a mountain high enough to reach, dollar sign that you can make, ocean floor that lies deep, big enough risk to take, a living lavish at its peak. If you don't serve Yah, then your life will never be complete.
Crazy, y'all keep starting. You know my heart, I can't lie. I do it all for you. I do it all for you. Crazy, y'all keep starting. You know my heart, I can't lie. I do it all for you. I do it all for you.
That's why I won't hang it up, bite my tongue or change it up. They say, Syph, you saying too much. I reply back like I ain't said enough. I'ma praise my Yah till I can't no more. Break bread, I'ma need a plate to go. Tryna live my life righteous to the point where Satan can't even hate no more. With my face to the flow, hands up to heaven, always bow, ain't worthy to stand in this presence. Gotta know where your help come from. Somebody greater than yourself, my son. Take a look around at what we become. Greatest thing on the earth, but we living like scum. Still refusing to make Yahweh number one, cause we feel like his ways just ain't no fun, huh? You gotta really give it every day and stay committed. Don't worry about what no one say about the way you living. Treat every second like Yahweh was there to pay a visit. Time is almost over, I know you don't wanna stay in prison. Ain't worried about a deal, getting signed I don't expect to. Make a bunch of meals that don't make you successful. It's how you change a person's life, displaying something helpful. But if they can't relate to what you saying, then they gon' reject you.
If you're not killing somebody, if you're not selling a kid coat, if you ain't got one of the prettiest cars in the hood, the biggest chains, some of the flyest chicks, they don't want to hear. So the little kids was going back home and then like, oh, okay, coming back up there and it's the same little kid that came in a week ago talking about